Your personality is not fixed, and your confidence is not a mystery. Both are built daily by the habits you repeat, the words you speak, and the standards you refuse to lower. Every room rewards energy, posture, discipline, and certainty, not excuses. If confidence feels low, the answer is not to wait for motivation. The answer is to change what you do every single day. In this audiobook, the truth is simple. Small daily habits create a stronger personality, a louder presence, and a life people respect. Chapter 1. Stop waiting to feel confident. You do not need to feel confident to act confident. That is the first truth. That is the whole truth. And for a lot of people, that truth is uncomfortable because it removes the excuse. You have a choice. You can keep waiting for the perfect mood, the perfect moment, the perfect version of yourself to appear. Or you can move now. You can speak now. You can stand now. You can begin now. That is the key. Confidence is not something that drops from the sky. Confidence is built. It is built through action. It is built through repetition. It is built through proving to yourself over and over again that you can do hard things before you feel ready. That is how strong people are made, not by wishing, not by delaying, not by hiding behind fear. You have a choice. And every day, people make the wrong one. They wait. They overthink. They rehearse conversations in their head and never say the words out loud. They sit on ideas and call it preparation. They call hesitation being careful. They call silence being respectful. But often it is just fear wearing a clean suit. Confidence is built, not found. Read that again. Confidence is built, not found. You do not discover it like a lost object. You construct it, brick by brick, action by action, decision by decision. The person who looks confident in public was not born with magic. That person practiced. That person failed in private. That person learned how to move anyway. Motion creates belief. That is the rule, not the other way around. People think belief must come first. It does not. You move first, and belief follows. You take the step first, and the mind catches up. You speak first, and your voice gets stronger. You sit up straight first, and your body starts to tell a different story. You have a choice. Stop asking, what if I look stupid? Start asking, what if I never start? That question matters more, because the cost of waiting is always higher than the risk of action. Waiting keeps you soft. Waiting keeps you vague. Waiting keeps you trapped in the fantasy that one day you will become bold without ever practicing boldness. It does not work that way. If you want a stronger personality, you must train it. If you want more confidence, you must build the habits that produce confidence. This is not about personality type. It's not about talent. It's about discipline. It's about what you repeat when nobody is clapping. You have a choice. Start with your speech. Most people speak like they're apologizing for existing. Their words are weak. Their voice is thin. Their sentences wander. They explain too much. They chase approval. They soften every statement because they're afraid of being judged. Stop that. Say what you mean. Say it clearly. Say it once, then stop. That is confidence. Not loudness, not arrogance. Clarity. You do not need their permission. You do not need permission to speak with a full voice. You do not need permission to take up space. You do not need permission to answer a question without shrinking at the end of every sentence. You do not need permission to say no. You do not need permission to walk into a room like you belong there, because you do belong there. You are allowed to exist with certainty. That is the key. People respond to certainty. They feel it. They notice it. Even before they understand it, they feel it. When you speak slowly and with intent, people listen differently. When you make eye contact without flinching, people take you more seriously. When you stop fidgeting and start standing like you mean it, your presence changes. Not because the world changed, because you changed. You have a choice. Look at your daily behavior.
Are you moving like someone who trusts himself, or are you moving like someone trying to disappear? Are you entering conversations with backbone, or are you waiting for the room to give you permission to matter? Stop waiting. Start showing up. A confident person does not always know the perfect answer, but a confident person knows how to stay present. That is the difference. Real confidence is not a performance. It's not pretending to be fearless. It's not acting superior to everyone. Real confidence is quiet strength. It is the ability to stay steady when you're uncomfortable. It is the ability to continue when your mind says stop. It is the ability to keep moving while fear is still present. You have a choice. Here is the practice. When you wake up, do not slump into the day. Sit up. Move with intention. Make your bed. Clean your space. Dress like the person you are becoming, not like the person who gave up yesterday. Speak to people with a direct tone. Hold eye contact for a little longer. Breathe before you answer. Pause before you react. These are small things, but small things build large identities. That is the key. Do not wait to become confident before you start behaving confidently. Behave confidently until it becomes natural. Practice the posture. Practice the speech. Practice the calm. Practice the discipline. Practice the habits that force your mind to catch up with your actions. Motion creates belief. Motion creates belief. Motion creates belief. And when you fail, do not collapse. Do not turn one awkward moment into proof that you are not enough. That is a lie. Everyone feels awkward. Everyone stumbles. Everyone has moments of doubt. The difference is what happens next. Weak people use the moment as an excuse to retreat. Strong people use it as training. You have a choice. This chapter is not about being fearless. It's about refusing to be ruled by fear. It's not about having perfect confidence. It's about building it through discipline, one day at a time, one conversation at a time, one brave decision at a time. That's how personality changes. That's how presence changes. That's how life changes. You do not need to feel ready. You need to move. You need to speak. You need to stand. You need to act. That is the lesson. Confidence is built, not found. Motion creates belief. You have a choice. And now that you understand how confidence begins, the next truth is even bigger, because how you carry your body will shape how the world receives your mind.
Chapter 2. Control your body, control your presence. Your body speaks before your mouth. That is the truth most people ignore. They think personality starts with words. It does not. It starts with posture. It starts with the way you stand, the way you walk, the way you sit, the way you hold your face when nobody is speaking to you. Before anyone hears your opinion, they read your frame. You have a choice. You can carry yourself like someone uncertain, collapsed, apologetic, and weak. Or you can carry yourself like someone who has standards, someone who knows who he is, someone who does not need to beg the room for approval. That is the key. Presence is physical, not emotional, not theoretical, physical. It is seen in the shoulders, in the neck, in the chin, in the eyes, in the pace of your movement, in the stillness of your hands. People feel your presence before they understand your personality. That is why you must train the body if you want to train the mind. Look at the difference. One person enters a room with shoulders back, head level, steps measured, face calm. That person does not speak yet, but something is already different. People notice, people respect, people pay attention. Another person enters with a collapsed chest, eyes lowered, knees loose, hands busy, face anxious, body shrinking inward. That person may have good ideas, but the body is already confessing weakness. The room reads that body. The room responds to that body. That is why confidence is not only internal, it is visible. You have a choice.
And this is where discipline matters more than feelings. Do not wait until you feel better to stand better. Do not wait until you feel confident to move with confidence. Carry yourself with standards now. That is the work. That is the repetition. That is the training. Your body is either helping you or exposing you. Stop walking like you are in a hurry to escape yourself. Slow down. Controlled movement creates controlled energy. A person who rushes everywhere looks unstable. A person who moves too quickly looks ungrounded. But a person who walks with calm intention feels solid, measured, certain, present. That is the key. When you enter a room, do not rush in like you are apologizing for your existence. Pause. Look around. Breathe. Let your body settle. Own your space. You do not need to perform. You do not need to impress. You do not need their permission. Presence comes from ownership, not noise. Pay attention to your face. A tense face creates a tense atmosphere. A nervous smile makes people read insecurity. A blank, dead face makes you look disconnected. But a calm, relaxed expression shows control. You do not have to walk around smiling at nothing. You do not have to freeze your face into some fake performance. You need balance. Calm eyes, relaxed jaw, steady expression. That is enough. You have a choice. If your face says, "I am nervous," the room will believe it. If your face says, "I am available to be dismissed," people will dismiss you. But if your face says, "I am calm, alert, and grounded," people respond differently. Not because you became a different human being, because you started controlling the signals you send. That is not manipulation. That is discipline. And discipline is what this book is about. Not pretending, not acting like someone else, not becoming fake. It is about removing the habits that weaken your presence and replacing them with habits that strengthen it. It is not about looking rich. It is about discipline. It is not about acting superior. It is about discipline. It is not about acting superior. It is about discipline. Your hands matter too. Nervous hands give away nervous thinking. Constant touching, scratching, fidgeting, adjusting, and waving wildly all drain authority. Stillness is powerful. Intentional movement is powerful. When your hands are under control, your whole body looks more stable. Learn to rest your hands naturally. Learn to gesture only when needed. Learn not to perform with every sentence. You do not need to fill every second with movement. Silence in the body creates authority in the room. That is the lesson. And this applies everywhere, in a conversation, in a meeting, on a date, at work, at a family gathering, in public. Your body is talking before your mouth starts working. So ask yourself a hard question. What is your body saying about you right now? Is it saying strength? Is it saying patience? Is it saying control? Or is it saying fear? You have a choice. If you want a stronger personality, practice standing with your feet grounded. Practice keeping your shoulders open. Practice lifting your chin just enough to signal certainty. Practice breathing slowly instead of tightening up. Practice moving with a steady pace. These are small actions, but they shape the way people experience you. And more importantly, they shape the way you experience yourself. Because once your body changes, your mind has to follow. That is the key. When you hold yourself with standards, your thinking changes. When you stop collapsing physically, you stop collapsing mentally so easily. When you stop moving like a victim, you start thinking like someone responsible. This is why posture is not just cosmetic, it is psychological, it is behavioral, it is identity. Do not underestimate the power of simple corrections. Sit upright instead of slouching. Stand still instead of shaking. Speak from a stable posture instead of twisting your body away. Look people in the eyes instead of looking for escape routes. Move with purpose instead of fidgeting like your life is on the line. These changes sound small because they are small,
but small changes repeated daily become a new standard. You have a choice. Carry yourself with standards every time, not only when you feel strong, not only when you know people are watching, every time, because how you carry yourself when nobody is clapping reveals your real level of discipline. Presence is physical. Say it again. Presence is physical. The room does not only hear your words, the room feels your body. The room feels your stillness. The room feels your comfort under pressure. The room feels whether you are centered or scattered. That is why you must train the body if you want to train the mind. That is why you must train the body if you want to train the mind. Because the body is not separate from the personality, it is part of it. And when you control the body, you control the message. You become harder to ignore, harder to read as weak, harder to shake, harder to dismiss. That is what happens when you stop moving like doubt and start moving like discipline. You do not need louder energy, you need cleaner energy. You do not need fake confidence, you need practiced presence. You do not need their permission, you need standards. That is the lesson. Your body speaks before your mouth. Carry yourself with standards. Presence is physical. You have a choice. And now that you understand how your body shapes your power, the next step is to control the words that follow.
Chapter 3. Speak less. Say more. Your words should carry weight. That is the lesson. Not volume, not noise, not endless explaining. Weight. A weak personality often reveals itself through too many words, too much justification, too much talking, too much defending, too much trying to make sure everybody agrees before the sentence is even finished. That is not strength. That is insecurity in motion. You have a choice. You can keep talking until your point disappears, or you can learn to speak with precision. That is the key. Strong people do not beg to be understood. They say what they mean, they say it once, they say it clean. Do not beg to be understood. Read that again. Do not beg to be understood. If your message is clear, it will land. If your message is calm, it will carry. If your message is precise, it will be remembered. But if your message is buried under nerves, apologies, and unnecessary explanation, people stop listening. Over-explaining weakens personality. It makes you look unsure. It makes you sound defensive. It makes every sentence feel like a request for approval. And the worst part is this: the more you explain, the less powerful your words become. People begin to hear fear, not certainty. They hear desperation, not direction. That is why short answers, strong presence. That is the rule. Short answers, strong presence. Not because you have nothing to say, not because you are hiding, not because you are cold, but because clarity is powerful. A person with standards speaks clearly. A person with discipline does not waste words. A person with presence knows that sometimes the strongest sentence is the shortest one. You do not need to fill silence. That is where many people lose their power. They feel a pause and they panic. They feel a moment of quiet and they rush to explain more. They think silence means weakness. It does not. Silence means control. Silence means you are not being controlled by the fear of how your words will land. Pause before speaking. That is a skill. That is a habit. That is training. When someone asks you a question, do not explode into the answer immediately. Breathe. Think. Then speak. A short pause tells the room that your mind is not scattered. It tells the room that you are not scrambling for approval. It tells the room that your thoughts are organized. You have a choice. You can answer like a nervous person chasing safety, or you can answer like a disciplined person choosing precision. One sounds shaky. One sounds grounded. One weakens your image. One strengthens it. That is the difference. Stop over-clarifying every sentence. Not every statement needs a long story behind it. Not every opinion needs a defense.
Not every decision needs a committee. Not every boundary needs a speech. Say what is necessary and let it stand. The more you chase understanding from everyone, the more you train people to doubt your certainty. Say it once, say it clean. That is the key. Say it once, say it clean. When you repeat yourself too much, your words lose sharpness. When you explain every detail, your message becomes soft. When you keep adding extra pieces, people stop hearing the main point. Clean speech is disciplined speech. It is a sign that your mind is organized and your personality is not begging to be liked. Listen carefully. This does not mean you should be rude. It does not mean you should be robotic. It does not mean you should act above people. It means you should stop leaking nervous energy through your speech. It means you should stop talking like every conversation is a test you have to survive. It means you should stop speaking as if disagreement will destroy you. You do not need their permission. You do not need permission to answer briefly. You do not need permission to say no. You do not need permission to end a conversation without dragging it into the ground. You do not need permission to state your position and leave it there. That is the discipline of speech. At work, this matters even more. A person who constantly over-explains in a meeting often sounds less competent, not more. A person who gives a clear answer then stops often appears more trustworthy. A person who speaks with certainty, even in a calm tone, usually commands more respect than the person who keeps adding nervous commentary. That is not luck. That is presence. In conversations, be intentional. When someone asks a simple question, answer simply. When someone asks for your opinion, give it without apology. When someone challenges you, do not rush into panic mode. Pause. Speak slowly. Keep your sentence direct. You do not need to perform intelligence. You need to demonstrate control. Short answers, strong presence. That phrase should stay with you. Short answers, strong presence. The strongest people often do not waste language. They know that every extra word should earn its place. They know that calm speech is more believable than frantic speech. They know that people trust clarity, and they know that a disciplined voice can change the energy in a room. This is not about sounding unnatural. It is about removing the habit of fear-driven speech. It is about replacing nervous rambling with calm precision. It is about learning how to speak like someone who trusts himself. Because when you trust yourself, you stop needing to overperform every sentence. Do not interrupt your own authority. That happens when you keep adding just, maybe, I think, I guess, sorry, and you know into every response. Some of those words are harmless alone, but used too often, they water down your presence. They make your voice sound uncertain before your point even lands. Clean it up. Tighten it up. Respect your own words. You have a choice. You can keep talking to relieve your anxiety, or you can speak to communicate power. That is the difference. One is emotional dumping. The other is disciplined communication. One weakens personality. The other strengthens it. Learn this well. The person who says less but says it with certainty often leaves a deeper impression than the person who keeps talking without control. That is because people remember confidence in speech. They remember calm. They remember directness. They remember the person who did not scramble for approval. Do not beg to be understood. Say it once. Say it clean. Short answers, strong presence. That is the standard. And when you master that standard, your personality sharpens. Your confidence grows. Your presence becomes harder to ignore. Because now your words match your standards. Now your speech matches your discipline. Now your voice sounds like someone who knows who he is. That is the lesson. Speak less, but speak with more power. Speak less, but speak with more control. Speak less, but speak like your words matter. Because they do. You do not need more noise. You need more discipline. You do not need more explanation. You need more precision. You do not need their permission. You need a stronger voice. That is the lesson. Short answers, strong presence. Do not beg to be understood. Say it once. Say it clean. And now that your words are under control, the next battle is even bigger. Because personality collapses the moment you depend on approval.
Chapter 4. Kill the need for approval. Approval is expensive. It costs more than people realize. It costs your truth. It costs your boundaries. It costs your confidence. It costs your ability to stand in a room without checking every face for signs of acceptance. And once you start paying that price, you keep paying it, again and again, until you no longer know who you are without outside reaction. You have a choice. You can keep changing yourself to fit every room, or you can decide that your identity is not a public vote. That is the key. People-pleasing destroys confidence because it teaches you to live by reactions instead of principles. It turns every decision into a performance review. It makes you ask, will they like this? Before you ask, is this right? That is weakness. Not because kindness is weakness, not because consideration is weakness, but because living for approval makes you abandon your own center. It makes you move from fear. It makes you shrink to avoid disagreement. It makes you say yes when your body is screaming no. Approval is expensive. You pay for it with self-respect. You pay for it with resentment. You pay for it with confusion. You pay for it with a personality that bends too easily. And the worst part is this: the more you chase validation, the less validation actually matters, because people can feel when you need them. They can feel when your yes is fake. They can feel when your smile is forced. They can feel when you are trying too hard to be accepted. That need leaks through your tone, your posture, your choices, your silence. Respect yourself before demanding respect. That is the standard. Respect yourself before demanding respect. If you do not respect your own time, others will not. If you do not respect your own boundaries, others will push them. If you do not respect your own words, others will ignore them. People learn how to treat you by watching how you treat yourself. You have a choice. You can ask for respect while living without standards, or you can build standards first and let respect follow. That is the difference. That is the real work. Not demanding that the world suddenly become decent, becoming so internally consistent that disrespect cannot easily enter your life. Let's make this real. Someone invites you to something you do not want to do. The approval-seeking response is panic. The approval-seeking response is over-explaining. The approval-seeking response is, I'm so sorry, maybe next time, I really want to, but I'm not sure, let me check, I hope you understand. That is not a boundary. That is a negotiation with your own discomfort. A stronger response is simple. No, I can't. Or, that doesn't work for me. Or, I'm going to pass. Clean, calm, direct. That is the key. You do not need to invent a story every time you refuse something. You do not need a courtroom defense for your own time. You do not need to apologize for every no. A boundary is not an attack. A boundary is a standard. A boundary says, this is where I stop. And a person with personality knows how to stop without guilt. Validation weakens identity. Say that clearly. Validation weakens identity. Because if your identity depends on applause, then silence feels like rejection. If your identity depends on praise, then criticism feels like collapse. If your identity depends on likes, comments, compliments, and constant reassurance, then you are not grounded. You are fragile. Do not live like that. A strong identity does not need constant applause to exist. It does not panic when people disagree. It does not reshape itself every time the crowd shifts. It stays steady. It stays rooted. It stays in line with standards, not moods. You have a choice. Stop changing your personality just to fit in. Stop laughing at things you do not find funny just to be accepted. Stop agreeing with opinions you do not believe just to avoid tension. Stop copying the energy of a room that does not deserve your spirit. Stop letting social pressure turn you into a version of yourself that cannot stand alone. That is what approval seeking does. It dilutes the self. It teaches you to perform instead of live. It teaches you to watch yourself from the outside. It turns your life into a constant audition. Approval is expensive, and the bill keeps growing. The people who respect you most are often not the ones who get every yes from you. They're the ones who can feel your consistency. They know where you stand. They know what you will not tolerate. They know that your no means no. They know that your yes means yes. That kind of clarity is rare. That kind of clarity is power. Say no without drama. That is another lesson. Say no without drama. You do not have to be angry to be firm. You do not have to be loud to be clear. You do not have to insult people to protect yourself. Just stop being available to everything. Stop being open to every request, every opinion, every demand, every invitation, every emotional tug. If you never close a door, you will never control your own house. That is the key. Boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They protect your time, your energy, your attention, your focus, and your peace. Without them, everything enters. Everyone enters. And once everything enters, your personality starts serving other people's urgency instead of your own purpose. You have a choice. You can be easy to access and hard to respect. Or you can be selective, steady, and respected. The goal is not to become difficult for no reason. The goal is to become intentional, to stop living like a public utility, to stop offering your energy to anything that asks for it. A person with confidence does not chase applause. A person with confidence does not fear disagreement. A person with confidence does not beg to be included in every circle. A person with confidence understands that not every room deserves access to their soul. That is the truth. And once you understand that, you stop taking rejection so personally. You stop seeing every no as a verdict on your worth. You stop performing to keep everyone comfortable. You start living from a deeper place, a place of standards, a place of discipline, a place where your identity is not something people vote on. Respect yourself before demanding respect. Repeat it. Respect yourself before demanding respect. If you want stronger confidence, start by refusing the habits that weaken it. Stop changing your voice for every crowd. Stop shrinking your opinions for safety. Stop letting fear guide your yes. Stop needing everyone to approve before you can stand tall. That is the lesson. Approval is expensive. Validation weakens identity. Respect yourself before demanding respect. And now that you know how dangerous approval can become, the next step is to build a life that makes you harder to shake.
Chapter 5. Build a routine that makes you hard to ignore. Strong personalities are not random. That is the truth. They are built, slowly, repeatedly, daily, not by luck, not by mood, not by waiting for some magical moment of motivation. They are built through structure, through discipline, through the habits you repeat when nobody is clapping. You have a choice. You can live loosely and hope your personality becomes powerful by accident, or you can build a routine that shapes you into someone impossible to ignore. That is the key. Routine builds identity. Routine builds confidence. Routine builds presence. And once your routine changes, your life begins to change with it. Routine builds identity. Say that again. Routine builds identity. What you do every day teaches the world what to expect from you. More importantly, it teaches your own mind who you are. If your days are chaotic, your personality becomes scattered. If your days are lazy, your personality becomes soft.
If your days are careless, your confidence becomes unreliable. But if your days are disciplined, your identity becomes stronger. That is not theory, that is reality. A person who wakes up with no plan, no structure, no standards, and no habits usually feels weak because the day is already controlling them. But a person who has a routine controls the day. That person is not waiting for life to tell them what to do. That person already knows. That is the difference. Discipline creates attractiveness. Not just physical attractiveness, not just style, not just appearance, real attractiveness, the kind people feel, the kind that comes from self-respect, the kind that shows you take yourself seriously. People are drawn to structure because structure suggests strength, it suggests reliability, it suggests a mind that is not falling apart. You have a choice. You can let your life be random, or you can create a rhythm that gives your personality weight. Start with the basics. Wake up at a consistent time. Make your bed. Wash your face. Shower properly. Dress with intention. These are not small things. These are identity-shaping things. The way you begin the day is the way you train your mind to carry the rest of it. Small habits make a strong person. That is the lesson. Small habits make a strong person. One reading session may not transform you today. One workout may not change your body overnight. One clean outfit may not change your future instantly. One promise you kept to yourself may look insignificant, but repeated daily, these actions stack. They build momentum. They build confidence. They build proof. And proof changes identity. That is the key. You need proof that you can trust yourself. If you say you will wake up early and you do it, you build trust. If you say you will read for 20 minutes and you do it, you build trust. If you say you will train your body and you follow through, you build trust. If you say you will stop wasting time and you actually stop, you build trust. Confidence rises where self-trust grows. Do not underestimate grooming. A neglected appearance tells the mind we do not matter. A cared-for appearance tells the mind we are serious. Keep your hair neat. Keep your clothes clean. Keep your shoes in shape. Keep your body presentable. You do not need to look expensive. You need to look intentional. That is enough. That is powerful. Routine builds identity. When you dress well consistently, you stop feeling like a random person passing through life. You start feeling like someone who has standards. That matters, because the way you present yourself affects the way you carry yourself, and the way you carry yourself affects the way people respond to you. You have a choice. You can let your life be random, or you can create a life that reinforces your standards every single day. The strongest people are not always the most talented. They are the most consistent. They keep promises to themselves. They do ordinary things with discipline. That is where power comes from. Read. Read books that sharpen your mind. Read ideas that challenge your weakness. Read words that teach you how to think better, speak better, and live better. A person who reads regularly begins to think differently. The mind becomes fuller. The speech becomes sharper, the perspective becomes wider, and when your thinking improves, your personality improves with it. Exercise. Move your body. Do not let weakness settle in. Train with effort. Walk with purpose. Stretch, run, lift, sweat, push yourself. A body that is cared for changes the way you feel about yourself. It changes your energy. It changes your presence. It changes your posture. It changes the way you enter a room. That is not vanity. That is discipline. Sleep properly. Eat properly. Hydrate properly. These things sound basic because they are basic, but basic discipline is where strong identity begins. A tired, overfed, undermoved, and disciplined body weakens the mind. A cared-for body strengthens the mind. And when the mind is stronger, personality becomes stronger too. Keep your environment clean. A messy environment often creates a messy mind. A clean space supports a clean focus. Clear your desk. Organize your room. Remove distractions. Make your surroundings reflect the standards you claim to have. You cannot live a powerful life in a space that constantly reminds you of chaos. You do not need perfection. You need consistency. That is the key. A routine is not about becoming robotic. It's about creating a dependable rhythm that keeps you grounded. It's about doing the things that make you more stable, more attractive, more focused, and more self-respecting. It's about becoming the kind of person whose life looks organized from the outside because it's disciplined on the inside. Stop waiting for motivation. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Routine stays. Routine carries you through low days. Routine keeps you moving when your emotions are slow. Routine protects your standards when your mood is weak. That is why serious people build routines. They know discipline is stronger than feeling. You have a choice. You can live by impulse, or you can live by structure. You can drift, or you can design. You can let the day happen to you, or you can build a day that serves who you are becoming. That is how identity is formed. Not in one grand moment, in repeated actions. Small habits make a strong person. Say it again. Small habits make a strong person. So start. Start with one reading habit. Start with one workout habit. Start with one grooming habit. Start with one cleaning habit. Start with one promise kept, and then repeat it, and then repeat it again, because repetition is where strength lives. Discipline creates attractiveness. Not because discipline is loud, not because discipline is flashy, because discipline is rare, and rare things stand out. That is why routine matters. It makes you visible in the best way. It makes your presence feel intentional. It makes your personality feel dependable. It makes your confidence feel earned. Routine builds identity. And once identity is built, everything else follows. Your speech gets sharper. Your posture gets stronger. Your boundaries get cleaner. Your energy gets calmer. Your life begins to reflect the standards you keep. That is the lesson. Do the work every day. Keep your routine simple. Keep your standards high. Keep your promises to yourself. Because small habits make a strong person. Routine builds identity. Discipline creates attractiveness. And now that your life has structure, the next battle is about learning how to stay steady when discomfort arrives.
Chapter 6. Learn to handle discomfort without breaking. Comfort is the enemy of strength. That is the truth. And most people spend their entire life trying to avoid discomfort, then wonder why they never grow. They avoid awkward moments. They avoid criticism. They avoid pressure. They avoid the very situations that could have shaped them into something stronger. That is how confidence dies slowly, not from one big failure, from 1,000 small acts of avoidance. You have a choice. You can keep running from discomfort and remain weak, or you can face it and become stronger. That is the key. Strength is not built in ease. Strength is built under pressure. Strength is built when the body wants to retreat, but you stay. When the mind wants to panic, but you breathe. When embarrassment tries to shake you, but you remain steady. Stay steady under discomfort. Say it again. Stay steady under discomfort, because that is where your personality is tested. Not when life is smooth, not when everyone agrees with you, not when the room is easy. The real test comes when the conversation gets awkward, when the criticism lands, when your voice shakes, when the moment feels too heavy. That is when your character is exposed. Pressure reveals character. That is the rule. Pressure reveals character. A person who cannot handle discomfort will spend life hiding inside convenience. They will avoid speaking up in meetings because they fear sounding wrong. They will avoid starting conversations because they fear rejection. They will avoid learning new skills because they fear looking foolish. They will avoid growth because growth always begins with discomfort.
But discomfort is not danger. Discomfort is not death. Discomfort is training. You have a choice. When you are in a meeting and your mind has a contribution, speak. Do not wait for the perfect moment that never comes. Do not sit there rehearsing in silence while someone else takes the space you were supposed to occupy. Raise your hand, say the point, keep it clear, keep it simple. That is how confidence is built, not by watching, by participating. That is the key. The first few times may feel awkward. Good, that is normal. The body resists what it is not used to. But if you stay quiet every time you feel awkward, you train yourself to disappear. If you speak anyway, you train yourself to expand. And once you expand, the discomfort becomes smaller, not because it vanished, because you became bigger than it. Start conversations even when it feels uncomfortable. That is another lesson. Do not wait to feel socially perfect. Most people are not. Most people feel a little uncertain when they walk up to someone new. That is fine. The goal is not to be flawless. The goal is to be present. Ask the question, offer the greeting, make the opening line. Let the moment be imperfect and still move through it. You do not need to impress. You need to initiate. Trying new skills will expose you too, and that is good. New skills reveal where your ego is weak. They show you the gap between who you are and who you could become. They force humility. They force repetition. They force you to be bad at something before you become good at it. Many people avoid this stage because they cannot tolerate looking incompetent, so they stay safe, and by staying safe, they stay average. Do not do that. If you are learning something new, expect to feel slow at first. Expect to feel clumsy. Expect to be corrected. Expect to be uncomfortable. That is not a sign that you should quit. That is a sign that you are learning, and learning always has a phase where the ego hates it. Pressure reveals character. Watch how you respond when you're embarrassed. Do you collapse? Do you overreact? Do you get defensive and start making excuses? Or do you stay calm, own the moment, and move forward? That choice matters, because embarrassment only grows when you feed it with panic. If you laugh lightly, correct yourself, and continue, you teach your nervous system that embarrassment is not a threat. You teach yourself that a mistake is not an identity. You teach yourself that one awkward moment does not define you. Stay steady under discomfort. That is the work. A strong person does not need every room to be comfortable. A strong person can sit inside uncertainty and still think clearly. A strong person can feel the heat and still remain controlled. A strong person can be criticized without falling apart. A strong person can be questioned without losing dignity. You have a choice. You can make comfort your master, or you can make discomfort your teacher. That is the difference. One keeps you small, one makes you stronger. One makes every unfamiliar moment feel like a threat. The other turns those moments into practice. Do not wait until discomfort disappears. It will not. Life keeps offering new discomforts, new rooms, new tasks, new conversations, new responsibilities, new pressure. The question is not whether discomfort will arrive. The question is whether you will break every time it does. Comfort is the enemy of strength. Say it clearly. Comfort is the enemy of strength. If you want stronger personality, you must get used to friction. You must get used to not knowing everything. You must get used to being challenged. You must get used to hearing no. You must get used to being corrected. You must get used to being a beginner. That is how character forms. And when fear rises, breathe. Do not let the moment control your entire body. Slow the breath, relax the shoulders, keep the face calm. Speak at a measured pace. Your nervous system follows your behavior. If you panic, the panic grows. If you steady yourself, the pressure becomes manageable. That is discipline. This applies everywhere. At work, speak when the room is quiet. In social settings, introduce yourself without overthinking. When learning, accept mistakes without self-hate. When criticized, listen before reacting. When embarrassed, recover quickly and keep moving.
That is how confidence becomes real, not by avoiding discomfort, by surviving it, by staying inside it, by proving to yourself that discomfort does not own you. You have a choice, and the more often you choose discomfort over avoidance, the stronger you become. The more often you stay in the moment, the less power fear has over you. The more often you face what makes you uneasy, the less fragile your confidence becomes. That is the key. Your personality sharpens through resistance. Your confidence deepens through pressure. Your presence strengthens through exposure, and your identity becomes harder to shake because you no longer collapse every time life presses on you. Stay steady under discomfort. That is the standard. Not perfect calm, not fake bravado, not pretending nothing hurts, just steady, just grounded, just controlled enough to keep moving when the pressure comes. That is how strong people are built. That is how confidence survives. That is how personality becomes stable. You do not need a comfortable life to become strong. You need the courage to stay inside discomfort without breaking. That is the lesson. Comfort is the enemy of strength. Pressure reveals character. Stay steady under discomfort. And now that you know how to remain unshaken under pressure, the next step is to carry that strength into the way you present yourself to the world.
Chapter 7. Dress like you respect yourself. Look like you mean business. That is the lesson. Your appearance is not a minor detail. It is not vanity. It is not shallow. It is communication. Before you speak, before you explain yourself, before you prove your intelligence, your presentation has already introduced you. The room sees your grooming. The room sees your fit. The room sees your effort. The room sees whether you respect yourself or not. You have a choice. You can dress like your life does not matter, or you can dress like you understand that how you present yourself changes how you are received. That is the key. Respect shows on the outside, not because clothes create character, but because character is reflected in how you care for what is visible. Respect shows on the outside. Say that again. Respect shows on the outside. A sloppy appearance often tells a deeper story. It can signal neglect. It can signal chaos. It can signal laziness. It can signal that you do not pay attention to details. And when you do not pay attention to yourself, people feel it. They may not say it directly, but they notice it immediately. First impressions are fast, sometimes unfair, but always powerful. Presentation is personality in public. That is the truth. Presentation is personality in public. The way you dress, groom, and carry yourself tells people what kind of standards you keep when nobody is forcing you. A clean shirt, a proper fit, neat hair, clean shoes, simple but intentional style. These things do not scream for attention. They quietly command it. That is where real presence lives. You do not need expensive clothes. You need disciplined choices. That is the key. A person with standards can look sharp without looking forced. A person with standards understands fit. They understand cleanliness. They understand simplicity. They understand that clutter weakens the message. Too many accessories, too many colors, too much noise, too much trying. That does not create power. It creates confusion. Look like you mean business. That phrase matters because it changes how you move. When you know you are dressed well, you stand differently. You walk differently. You speak differently. You stop fidgeting as much. You stop shrinking. You stop feeling like the room is bigger than you. Appearance influences behavior. That is why discipline in style is part of discipline in confidence. In interviews, this matters. In meetings, this matters. On dates, this matters. In social spaces, this matters. Everywhere, this matters.
Imagine two people walking into the same room. One is neat, sharp, and deliberate. The other looks careless, distracted, and unprepared. Before either of them speaks, the room has already formed an opinion. Not a final opinion, but an initial one, and initial impressions have weight. You should care about that. You have a choice. You can act like appearance is irrelevant and then wonder why people do not take you seriously at first glance. Or you can understand that respect often begins with what people can see immediately. That is not fake. That is reality. And reality must be handled with discipline. This does not mean becoming obsessed with style. It means becoming intentional. Keep your clothes clean. Keep your clothes fitted properly. Keep your hair neat. Keep your nails clean. Keep your shoes in order. Keep your body presentable. These are basic standards, but basic standards separate the careless from the disciplined. A person who respects himself does not need to wait for a special event to look put together. He looks put together because it is part of his identity. That is the lesson. Presentation is personality in public. What you wear should not be random. It should support the image you want to project. If you want to be seen as calm, choose clean and simple. If you want to be seen as serious, choose sharp and organized. If you want to be seen as dependable, choose consistency over chaos. Style is not about hiding who you are. It is about expressing standards clearly. Respect shows on the outside, and when your outside reflects discipline, people respond differently. They listen more carefully. They assume more competence. They take your presence more seriously. Not because clothes make a person valuable, but because care makes a person visible. People naturally trust signals of order. You do not need to look perfect. You need to look deliberate. That is the key. Deliberate grooming creates immediate credibility. A well-kept appearance says, I pay attention. It says, I value details. It says, I am not careless with myself. That message matters in interviews where people are deciding whether to trust you. It matters in meetings where your professionalism is being observed. It matters on dates where first impressions shape attraction. It matters in social spaces where people are reading energy before they ever hear your story. Look like you mean business. Not like you are trying too hard. Not like you are performing. Not like you are begging to be noticed. Just clean, just sharp, just ready. That is enough. And let's be clear, a sharp appearance does not excuse a weak character, but it often helps a strong character be seen faster. It removes unnecessary friction. It gives your personality a better entrance. It makes your standards visible before your words do the rest of the work. You have a choice. You can walk around looking unprepared and then wonder why people do not take you seriously at first glance, or you can understand that respect often begins with what people can see immediately. That is not fake. That is reality. And reality must be handled with discipline. This does not mean becoming obsessed with style. It means becoming intentional. Keep your clothes clean. Keep your clothes fitted properly. Keep your hair neat. Keep your nails clean. Keep your shoes in order. Keep your body presentable. These are basic standards, but basic standards separate the careless from the disciplined. A person who respects himself does not need to wait for a special event to look put together. He looks put together because it is part of his identity. That is the lesson. Presentation is personality in public. What you wear should not be random. It should support the image you want to project. If you want to be seen as calm, choose clean and simple. If you want to be seen as serious, choose sharp and organized. If you want to be seen as dependable, choose consistency over chaos. Style is not about hiding who you are. It is about expressing standards clearly. Respect shows on the outside, And when your outside reflects discipline, people respond differently. They listen more carefully. They assume more competence. They take your presence more seriously. Not because clothes make a person valuable, but because care makes a person visible. People naturally trust signals of order. You do not need to look perfect. You need to look deliberate. That is the key. Deliberate grooming creates immediate credibility. A well-kept appearance says, I pay attention. It says, I value details. It says, I am not careless with myself. That message matters in interviews where people are deciding whether to trust you. It matters in meetings where your professionalism is being observed. It matters on dates where first impressions shape attraction. It matters in social spaces where people are reading energy before they ever hear your story. Look like you mean business. Not like you are trying too hard. Not like you are performing. Not like you are begging to be noticed. Just clean, just sharp, just ready. That is enough. And let's be clear, a sharp appearance does not excuse a weak character, but it often helps a strong character be seen faster. It removes unnecessary friction. It gives your personality a better entrance. It makes your standards visible before your words do the rest of the work. You have a choice. You can walk around looking unprepared and then wonder why people do not take you seriously at first glance, or you can understand that respect often begins with what people can see immediately. That is not fake. That is reality. And reality must be handled with discipline. This does not mean becoming obsessed with style. It means becoming intentional. Keep your clothes clean. Keep your clothes fitted properly. Keep your hair neat. Keep your nails clean. Keep your shoes in order. Keep your body presentable. These are basic standards, but basic standards separate the careless from the disciplined. A person who respects himself does not need to wait for a special event to look put together. He looks put together because it is part of his identity. That.
Chapter 8. Master your emotions before they master you. Calm is power. That is the truth. Not loudness, not chaos, not emotional outbursts. Calm is power. Because the person who can stay steady under pressure becomes harder to shake, harder to manipulate, and harder to predict. And that is strength. Emotional instability weakens personality because it makes you reactive. It makes you easy to read. It makes you easy to push. It makes every small problem feel like a crisis. You have a choice. You can let every feeling drive your behavior, or you can control your response. That is the key. A strong personality is not the one that feels nothing. It is the one that can feel deeply without losing control. It is the one that can be angry without becoming reckless, hurt without becoming dramatic, frustrated without becoming unstable. React less, control more. Say that again. React less, control more. That is the standard. Most people do not lose control in one giant moment. They lose control in small moments. A rude comment, a delayed reply, a slight, a misunderstanding, a bad mood. Then the reaction begins. The voice changes, the posture changes, the tone changes. The whole personality starts to shake because the emotions have taken the wheel. That is not confidence. That is emotional dependency. And emotional dependency is expensive. It costs you clarity. It costs you respect. It costs you peace. It costs you the ability to think before you speak. A person who reacts instantly to every feeling is not strong. That person is ruled from the inside, pulled by every mood, bent by every insult, controlled by every disappointment. That kind of life is exhausting, and it weakens the personality because nobody trusts someone who changes shape every time pressure appears. Emotional control is real strength. Read that clearly.
Emotional control is real strength. Not fake calm, not pretending nothing bothers you, not becoming cold, not pretending to be above human emotion. Real strength is the ability to pause, to breathe, to think, to choose a response instead of spilling out a reaction. You have a choice. When someone insults you, you do not have to answer immediately. When someone disrespects you, you do not have to erupt instantly. When someone tries to provoke you, you do not have to dance to their rhythm. Silence is often stronger than explanation. Stillness is often stronger than reaction. A measured response is often stronger than emotional noise. That is the key. If you answer every provocation, you are living on someone else's schedule. If you react to every comment, you are giving strangers access to your nervous system. If you explode every time you feel disrespected, you are telling the world that your emotions are in control. Stop that. Instead, pause. Breathe. Let the moment settle. Then decide what is necessary. Not everything deserves a reply. Not every insult deserves a war. Not every disappointment deserves a speech. Not every feeling deserves immediate expression. That is discipline. That is maturity. That is emotional strength. Calm is power. When you are calm, your thinking is clearer. When your thinking is clearer, your words are better. When your words are better, your presence becomes stronger. People trust the person who can stay composed. They trust the person who does not become chaos under pressure. They trust the person who can feel the heat and still remain in control. You have a choice. You can be easy to trigger, or you can be stable. You can be ruled by your temper, or you can rule your temper. You can be the person who reacts first and regrets later, or you can be the person who thinks first and acts with intent. That is the difference between weakness and strength. Look at daily life. A message comes late. Do you assume the worst immediately? A coworker sounds sharp. Do you turn the whole day into a silent battle? A friend forgets something. Do you create drama from a small mistake? A stranger looks at you wrong. Do you hand them your piece for free? These are tests, small ones, daily ones, and the answer is not to become emotionless. The answer is to become controlled. React less, control more. That phrase belongs in your mind. React less, control more. Because every unnecessary reaction weakens your authority. Every emotional explosion tells the world that they can pull you out of center. Every time you lose your composure too quickly, you teach people where your weak points are. And once people can predict your emotional collapse, they can use it against you. That is why restraint matters. Restraint is not weakness. Restraint is power with discipline. Restraint is knowing that you do not have to say everything you feel at the exact moment you feel it. Restraint is choosing silence when silence protects your peace. Restraint is deciding that not every battle is worth your energy. That does not make you passive, it makes you wise. Emotional control is real strength. Say it again. Emotional control is real strength. In relationships, this matters. In work, this matters. In family, this matters. In public, this matters. A person who cannot manage emotion creates instability everywhere they go. But a person who can manage emotion creates safety, clarity, and trust. People relax around composure. They pay attention to calm authority. They respect the person who does not need drama to feel alive. You do not need drama. You need discipline. You do not need to prove you're tough by reacting to everything. You need to prove you're strong by staying grounded. That is the key. And when you do speak, let it be measured. Not cold, not fake, not exaggerated. Measured. Say what is necessary. Say it clearly. Then stop. A steady tone carries more weight than a loud emotional burst. A calm face carries more authority than a frantic expression. A patient pause carries more control than a rushed argument. You have a choice. You can let your feelings write your script, or you can write your own script and let feelings pass through without taking the seat of command. That is where growth begins. Notice your patterns. Do you get angry fast? Do you get hurt fast? Do you get defensive fast? Do you need immediate response to feel secure? Those patterns are not signs of personality. They are signs of emotional immaturity. And emotional immaturity weakens confidence because it makes your mood louder than your mission. Slow down. That is the instruction. Breathe before you speak. Count before you respond. Wait before you send the message. Let time expose whether the reaction was real or just temporary emotion. That small pause can save your dignity. That small pause can preserve your relationships. That small pause can protect your future. Calm is power, not because life becomes easy, because you become harder to destabilize. The more you practice calm, the less room chaos has in your life. The more you practice restraint, the less emotion has control over your personality. The more you practice patience, the more authority your presence begins to carry. You have a choice. Stay reactive and remain ruled by the moment, or stay steady and rise above the moment. That is the lesson. Not every feeling deserves a stage. Not every comment deserves a response. Not every irritation deserves your energy. React less, control more. Emotional control is real strength. Calm is power. And now that you know how to master your inner world, the next step is to build the outer boundaries that protect it. Chapter 9. Become someone with standards.
Chapter 9. Become someone with standards. Standards create identity. That is the truth. Not words, not intentions, not promises. Standards. What you allow, what you tolerate, what you repeat, what you walk away from. These things shape your life more than anything you say out loud, because your life does not follow your opinions. Your life follows your standards. You have a choice. You can live loosely, accepting anything that comes your way, or you can define what stays and what goes. That is the key. Confidence without standards is unstable. It looks strong on the outside, but it collapses under pressure. But when confidence is backed by standards, it becomes identity. Standards create identity. Say it again. Standards create identity. If you tolerate disrespect, your life fills with disrespect. If you tolerate laziness, your life fills with stagnation. If you tolerate poor habits, your life reflects poor results. Not because you asked for it, because you allowed it. What you allow becomes your life. That is not harsh. That is reality. What you allow becomes your life. You have a choice. Stop negotiating with weakness. That is the lesson. Do not negotiate with weakness. Weakness will always try to bargain. It will tell you, just this once. It will tell you, it's not a big deal. It will tell you, you deserve a break. It will tell you, nobody will notice. But every time you listen to that voice, you lower your standard. And every time you lower your standard, your identity shifts in the wrong direction. It is not about being perfect. It is about being consistent. That is the key. A person with standards does not wait for motivation to behave correctly. A person with standards does not need an audience to act with discipline. A person with standards does not perform only when it is convenient. They show up the same way, whether someone is watching or not. That is power, because integrity is built in private. Let's make this real. You say you will wake up early, but you snooze the alarm 5 times. That is not a time problem. That is a standards problem. You say you will stop wasting time, but you scroll for hours. That is not a distraction problem. That is a standards problem. You say you will eat better, but you keep choosing what is easy over what is right. That is not a knowledge problem. That is a standards problem. You say you want respect, but you tolerate disrespect. That is not a people problem. That is a standards problem. Everything comes back to standards. You have a choice.
You can keep making excuses, or you can raise the line and refuse to fall below it. That is the work. That is the discipline. That is how identity is formed. Not by what you want, by what you enforce. Do not negotiate with weakness. Repeat it. Do not negotiate with weakness. When you set a standard, keep it simple and clear. If you say you will wake up at a certain time, do it. If you say you will train your body, do it. If you say you will speak with clarity, do it. If you say you will not tolerate disrespect, enforce it. No debate, no drama, no emotional speeches, just action. That is the key. Standards are not loud, they are consistent, and consistency builds reputation. Not just how others see you, how you see yourself. Because every time you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce identity. You tell your mind, this is who we are. And the more that message repeats, the stronger it becomes. Confidence grows when identity is stable. Identity becomes stable when standards are enforced. What you allow becomes your life. Look at your environment. Look at your relationships. Look at your habits. Look at your routines. Everything around you is a reflection of what you have allowed over time. If something feels off, if something feels draining, if something feels below your potential, the question is simple. Why is it still here? You have a choice. Leave draining environments. That is not weakness. That is strength. If a space constantly disrespects you, drains you, or pulls you away from your standards, you do not need to stay and suffer to prove toughness. You need to leave, quietly, cleanly, without drama, without begging anyone to change. Just leave. That is discipline. Refuse bad habits. Do not keep patterns that weaken you just because they are familiar. Comfort is not a reason to stay stuck. If a habit destroys your focus, your health, your time, or your confidence, remove it, replace it, improve it. Do not protect it. Do not negotiate with weakness. Keep promises even when nobody is watching. That is where identity becomes real. It is easy to act disciplined when there is pressure. It is easy to act focused when there is an audience. But real standards show up in private, when nobody is there to praise you, when nobody is there to judge you, when nobody is there to remind you. What you do in that moment defines you. That is the key. Standards are not something you talk about, they are something you live. A person with standards does not need to announce them. You see it in their behavior. You see it in their consistency. You see it in what they accept and what they reject. You see it in how they move, how they speak, how they decide, and how they walk away. You have a choice. You can say you want a better life, or you can enforce the standards that create a better life. Those are two different things. One is wishful thinking. The other is disciplined action, and only one of them produces results. Standards create identity. Repeat it. Standards create identity. Because once your standards are clear, your decisions become easier. You stop overthinking everything. You stop debating with yourself constantly. You stop getting pulled in every direction. You already know what is acceptable. You already know what is not. That clarity is powerful. It removes confusion. It removes hesitation. It removes weakness, and it replaces it with direction. Do not negotiate with weakness. Say it again. Do not negotiate with weakness. Every time you feel tempted to lower your standards, remember what it costs. It costs your time. It costs your energy. It costs your focus. It costs your growth. It costs your identity. Nothing worth building comes from constant compromise with weakness. You have a choice. Be the person who allows anything, or be the person who defines everything. That is the difference. And when you become someone with standards, your personality becomes solid, your confidence becomes stable, your presence becomes clear. People know where you stand. You know where you stand. Life becomes more intentional because you are no longer drifting. That is the lesson. Standards create identity. What you allow becomes your life. Do not negotiate with weakness. And now that your standards are set, the final step is to make everything you have learned part of who you are every single day.
Chapter 10. Make confidence a daily identity. Confidence is a lifestyle. That is the final truth. Not a performance, not a temporary boost, not something you turn on when people are watching and turn off when you are alone. Confidence is built into your daily behavior. It is repeated through your habits. It is reinforced through your standards. It is lived, not performed. You have a choice. You can keep treating confidence like an event, or you can make it your identity. That is the key. Because anything you only do occasionally will never define you, but what you do daily becomes who you are. Daily repetition becomes identity. Say it again. Daily repetition becomes identity. Everything you have learned in this audiobook means nothing if it is not repeated. One day of discipline does not change your life. One confident moment does not transform your personality. One strong decision does not build identity. It is the repetition that matters. It is the consistency that creates power. Become the person you practice. That is the standard. If you practice hesitation every day, you become hesitant. If you practice silence out of fear every day, you become invisible. If you practice avoiding discomfort every day, you become fragile. But if you practice confidence daily, you become confident. That is how identity works. You have a choice. Wake up with intent. Do not drift into your day like it has control over you. Start with purpose. Get up on time. Move your body. Clean your space. Dress yourself properly. These are not random actions. These are signals. Signals to your mind that you are serious. Signals that you are building something. Signals that your life has direction. That is the key. Confidence is not built in big moments. It is built in small, repeated actions. Speak with clarity every day, not just when it matters most, not just when the stakes are high. Every conversation is practice. Every interaction is training. Say what you mean. Say it clean. Do not over-explain. Do not beg to be understood. The more you practice clear speech, the more natural it becomes. Become the person you practice. Carry your body with standards every day. Stand upright. Walk with intention. Control your movements. Do not collapse physically when your mood drops. Your posture is not based on how you feel. It is based on your discipline. Presence is physical, and it must be practiced daily. Confidence is a lifestyle. Dress with care every day. Not only for special occasions, not only when you expect to be seen. Your appearance is a reflection of your standards. Keep it clean. Keep it intentional. Look like you respect yourself even when nobody is watching, because the goal is not to impress others. The goal is to reinforce your own identity. Respect shows on the outside. Set boundaries every day. Say no when needed. Protect your time. Protect your energy. Stop saying yes out of fear. Stop negotiating with weakness. Standards are not one-time decisions. They are daily enforcement. And every time you enforce them, your confidence becomes more real. You have a choice. React less, control more, every day. Emotional control is not something you master once. It is something you practice constantly. Every irritation is a test. Every delay is a test. Every challenge is a test. Stay calm. Stay steady, stay in control, because calm is power, and power must be practiced. Stay steady under discomfort every day. Do not run from awkward moments. Do not avoid pressure. Do not hide from growth. Face it, sit in it, move through it. The more you face discomfort, the less it controls you, and the less it controls you, the stronger your identity becomes. Daily repetition becomes identity. This is how everything connects. Your routine builds your identity.
Your posture builds your presence. Your speech builds your authority. Your boundaries build your respect. Your emotional control builds your stability. None of these stand alone. They work together, and they must be repeated. You have a choice. You can keep restarting every week, or you can stay consistent every day. The person who restarts constantly never builds identity. The person who repeats consistently becomes unshakable. That is the difference between temporary confidence and permanent confidence. Confidence is a lifestyle, not something you visit, something you live. That means even on bad days, you keep your standards. Even on low-energy days, you keep your habits. Even when nobody is watching, you stay disciplined. That is where real transformation happens. Not when it is easy, not when it is exciting, when it is ordinary, when it is quiet, when it is repetitive. That is where identity is formed. Become the person you practice. Say it again. Become the person you practice. If you practice discipline, you become disciplined. If you practice clarity, you become clear. If you practice strength, you become strong. If you practice confidence, you become confident. There is no shortcut. There is no secret. There is only repetition. Daily repetition becomes identity. And once identity is formed, everything becomes easier. Not because life becomes simple, but because you become consistent. You no longer depend on mood. You no longer depend on motivation. You no longer depend on approval. You act from identity. That is power. You do not need to prove confidence anymore. You become it. That is the goal. Confidence is not something you show. It is something you live. And when you live it daily, your personality sharpens, your presence strengthens, your standards hold, your voice carries weight. Your life begins to reflect the discipline you have built. You have a choice. Stay inconsistent and remain unsure, or stay consistent and become undeniable. That is the final decision. This audiobook has given you the tools. Now the responsibility is yours. Apply it daily. Repeat it daily. Live it daily. Because confidence is a lifestyle. Daily repetition becomes identity. Become the person you practice. That is the lesson. This is the truth. Personality is built daily. Confidence is built daily. And respect is built daily. No one wakes up strong by accident. No one becomes magnetic by luck. It happens through repetition, through standards, through discipline, through the decision to stop shrinking and start standing tall. Speak clearly. Move with purpose. Dress with care. Control your emotions. Protect your standards. Stop asking for permission to be confident. Start becoming the kind of person whose presence changes the room. That is the lesson. That is the work. That is the shift. Now take this seriously. Apply it every day, and do not just listen to this message. Live it. If this audiobook hit home, like the video and subscribe to MindShift Audiobooks for more powerful transformations.